What's going on, guys? Finally here today with the video a lot of folks have been waiting for. Got a lot of DMs, a lot of people asking, when are you going to do the 416 update video to follow up your Black Ops Defense video? Today's the day. Right now, let's get to it. Let's go over it. The 416 Tannadized edition. All right, guys, I don't want to make this video too long. We're going to try to quickly go through from tip to butt, as Grand Thumb would say, and go over what I did to this and why I chose what I chose. There's going to be links in the description to a couple articles I used as a reference when I was looking at what to put on a sort of CAG edition, CAG spec 416. I didn't do that to the T. I didn't follow those articles and parts lists to the T. I took some liberties from those lists. As you'll see when we go through this, this is sort of a more updated version of what I think a CAG gun would be. So let's talk about it. So first, I didn't do a 416D. I feel like everybody does a 416D, so I wanted to do something a little different. So I just went with the standard 416, then 11-inch barrel, instead of the 10.3, 10.2, 10.4, you know, those that half an inch or so shorter barrel, I went with the 11-inch. I chose not to do the Surefire cans. The ones you'll see in the photos and the ones you'll know, the Surefire tan cans that guys are running. I wanted to run a more modular can. I'm not a guy that puts cans on everything. So I wanted to get one I could use for different things. However, I like the way this overall can was. So what I did was I went with the Silencer Co. ASR mount and the Omega 36 can. Was that in the short configuration, it is still hearing safe. I mean, I wouldn't want to do it all the time indoors because it does pop. But outside, it is very manageable. In the longer configuration, adding on those 3 extra baffles to this can, it actually inside is, I think, hearing safe. It is quite quiet, and I'm not a can expert, but maybe because this is has more volume in this can, since it is for a 36 cal, it just gives that little bit more sound suppression. I just like that. So what I'll probably end up doing with this can is get this Cerakoted in like a RAL or a FDE type of scheme to kind of match this whole thing, kind of like the CAG guns were. So moving on back from there, we got the actual Geissele rail. So this is the rail that is meant for the 416s. It's not a reproduction, it's not a clone. This is the one made for the 416 by Geissele. So I felt like, there were a few options, but I wanted to go with the Geissele rail. I thought it looked the coolest. I just like the modularity of it. I like the way it was set up. I like the color. The CAG guns had this on there most of them. So let's talk about some of the liberties I took in this section. I went with the PEC, but this is not a real full power PEC. This is a reproduction PEC, so it still works. It still has all the functions. It's just not full power. So, it is what it is. But I needed this on there to complete the look, complete the build for the 416, since guys were running, the tan PEC 15. I had to get it, and I had to go for that look. I did the Surefire light, the Scout that basically they talked about in the build list, but I did some things with the buttons. So I'm really a fan of the Unity stuff. Instead of just doing a main single pressure pad up top or on the side, guys are running the Surefire pressure pad down here, and it would just be zip tied right to this portion. So when you were using it, you kind of just had your hand here and you could just hit it. So I had that, and I was like, well, I kind of want to bring the CAG build or this 416 build sort of in the modern times and take some liberties. So that's what I did. So I went with the Unity hot button for the Surefire light, and then I also went with the Unity mod button for the laser functions. So now, night vision is not something I've gotten into yet, but it's sort of the progression, right? Like, it'll happen. I'm going to get into that shortly. But what I wanted to do with this and this setup is run the hot button here, and since it has a nice little resting point here, I can kind of configure this how I want. But then I can just, hit the white light here, and then I don't mistakenly hit the white light if I'm going to use the laser or the functionality from the PEX. So it's not like I'm going to hit it by accident. I have two separate buttons, two separate areas. I know for sure what I'm hitting, and I don't accidentally go white light if I don't need to or if I don't want to. So again, I'm not going to be doing nighttime operations. I'm not a cool guy, but having that option and having that setup, I really like that to kind of go with the overall feel of this rifle. Moving on back from there, I went with the HK version RAL grip. You know, there's a lot of parts that are sort of interchangeable with the Magpul parts and the Magpul FDE colors, but a lot of the stuff, since I was going kind of the RAL edition 416, I wanted to do, you know, RAL accents. So a lot of stuff that I could get in RAL, you know, actual German parts, I did. So you'll see that pop of color, and I love the contrast because the color play is so great. This is probably the sexiest looking gun I own, and I love it. This thing is just, man, love it. So moving on back from there, we'll talk about the optics. So I did the EOTech with the EOTech magnifier as the CAD guns used, but I switched out to the Unity mounts. So I got the Unity riser and the Unity flip to center, which if you follow me on Instagram, you've seen how this operates, or you know about it. Just goes straight up and down instead of hanging off to the side, which could be, you know, a potential snag point, or just kind of get you that off balance with that weight hanging over to the side. I really loved what they did with that flip to center. So again, it was kind of my touch and my take on a more modern era 416 gun that, you know, it will be ran in night vision. And, you know, you can kind of passively just look through it. I know they say a lot of guys won't even use the optics running night vision. They're just running the laser. So there's that, but I like having the option. If I get into night vision, then I know I'll be able to look through that if I want to. Just something cool. I just wanted to kind of make it a little different, make it a little more personalized to me, so I went that route. So now talking about the receiver, I took some liberties with the markings. So in those articles, if you look at them, they've got all the markings available. They got the markings on the front, the full markings on the side. I just wanted to, I don't know. I chose not to add all of the markings, all of the HK specific markings for the 416. I just wanted to make it look a little cleaner. Some people say, well, then it's not a 416. It doesn't have the, you know, the Georgia markings. It doesn't have the markings in the front here. But I didn't need it. So I just went simple. I went with the HK 416. And then I kept it clean over here just with the made in Germany. And just deleted, as I said, the markings in the front. So I took some liberties there. Moving on back, at first I had the V1 or the V3 RAL grip on, but then finally came up and found a version 7. So I put the version 7 RAL grip on. I did the RAL extended trigger guard. I did the RAL selector switches. So I really felt like, since I'm doing this RAL edition CAD gun, I wanted to have as many RAL pieces on there as I could to give that color play and that pop, to make it just look and stand out and just be that, you know, what I've seen pictures of and really what I wanted to kind of have this thing look like. And you know, all that it's just cosmetic, but it just looks good completely together. Same with the RAL dust cover. I wanted to add that on. Again, it just kind of completes the look of the whole thing. I love the color play of all the different color tans. It really just kind of ties that whole thing together. So the receiver itself is not Cerakoted. This is anodized. As you saw in the video from Black Ops Defense, they strip this whole thing down and then it goes through the anodized process. This is the shade of color it came out. It looks a little different, different lights outside. It looks different inside. It's gonna look a little different, but it generally has that RAL / a little bit of green tint to it, and it really plays well with the rest of the colors on the gun. So I love the way it came out. They did a phenomenal job on this whole thing. Moving on back, I did the extended castle nut as the 416s have, and tanadized the factory MR556 buffer tube, so it all matches. Before I forget, I did the Geisley extended charging handle. Now this charging handle is the one that was made for the HK contract. So this one is not marked as Geisley. It just has sort of their numbers on it, but does not have the Geisley marking. So pretty cool. I'm glad I stumbled upon that one. So I did go with that extended charging handle there. And then of course went with the V7 RAL slimline buttstock. So this whole thing, man, it really, the way it came together is just great. I got different mag options. This one here is just the Lancer tan translucent. I thought it went well with this whole thing, but you know, mag's a mag, but I just thought it kind of lended well to the whole thing. The sling I added, this is the kind of slings I've been running on a lot of my builds. It's just a pineapple grenade. I felt like the color play and everything went well with the gun, so I went with that. The last thing now to do is, of course, run the gun. Let's run it, let's shoot it, let's have some fun out here. And of course, I am not the guy. I'm not a cool guy. I am not certified at all to run this gun. So I got to enlist the help of my buddy the Stig to take over and show us how this thing is supposed to run the way that real operators do it. Some say he once stood in front of a sand dune and completely vanished. We don't know his name. All we know him as the Stig.
My initial thoughts on running the 416 tenonized is that it is nothing short of perfection. This takes me all the way back to the late 2000s when I was doing operations deep within Afghanistan. This thing is built like a tank. All of the modern upgrades that I've come accustomed to over the years really work great in getting on target, especially in nighttime operations. This is a must-have weapon for any certified operator of an elite class. Something to note, this is a 416, not an MP5. Upon Steve handing me this 416, it was easy to see at times I went to slap it and clap it when there was no charging handle up top because this is not an MP5. But being an elite operator, it was easy to make the adjustment. Making adjustments on the fly is what being a Special Forces elite operator does. I highly recommend a 416 for elite operators along with the MP5. Both weapon systems will get the job done gets you in and out of conflict at the drop of a hat. What also made this that much better was the bi-Davidoff chest rig. Having a color-matched chest rig really sets the tone and puts fear in the enemy's eyes. Being able to quickly access my mags for mag changes made all the difference in trying to complete an operation. Always remember, high speed, low drag.
All right, guys, so that wraps up the MR556, the 416 build. Thanks for being patient for all you guys asking about when this video was coming. It's finally here, it's done. You saw the Stig, you heard him, this thing runs great, and more importantly, it looks great. So thanks for the support. Here we are starting off 2023 strong. Don't forget Steve MP5 on the Instagrams. I'll see you next time.